All right, well, the Supreme Court denying for now President Trump's request to deploy National Guard troops to Chicago against violent immigration protests. The justices ruled 6-3 that the government failed to identify a, quote, source of authority to allow the military to enforce laws in Illinois. Brooke Taylor is in Dallas with the latest for us. Hi, Brooke.
Yeah, this is a rare defeat for President Trump, who has won repeated victories in emergency appeals since he first took office. Now, in the Supreme Court ruling, they said, quote, the Supreme Court at this preliminary stage, the government has failed to identify a source of authority that would allow the military to execute the laws in Illinois. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson reacted to his victory with, quote, this decision doesn't just protect Chicago, but protect cities around the country who have been threatened by Trump's campaign against immigrants and Democratic-led cities. The Trump administration has sent the National Guard to other Democratic-led cities like L.A. and Washington, D.C. In early October, nearly 300 National Guard troops from Texas were deployed to Chicago to help protect federal property after violent clashes between ICE officers and protesters. The president called Chicago a mess and said he would solve the crime problem fast, arguing the deployment was necessary in order to crack down on crime and protect residents and federal ICE officers. Well, Trump has relied on a law that lets a president deploy state National Guard troops to, quote, suppress a rebellion, repel an invasion, or if he is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Well, the court argued because Trump had not first legally deployed regular military to support law enforcement, he had no basis to deploy the Guard.
Eisenhower, Republican president, deployed the National Guard to enforce federal law. Kennedy deployed the National Guard to enforce federal law. President Trump is trying to do the same thing. The Supreme Court is not only setting a bad example, they're encouraging those district-level judges that are basically doing everything to act as though they are the president of the United States.
And a spokesperson for the White House responded to Fox Digital and said, quote, the president promised the American people he would work tirelessly our immigration laws. Nothing in today's rulings distracts that core agenda. Lydia.
Yeah, Brooke, and we'll see how President Trump responds to this ruling in subsequent moves. We'll follow that. But for now, very good to see you on this Christmas morning, Brooke. Merry Christmas.
My wager is he's going to escalate things. For more on this, let's bring in retired Yuma Sector Border Patrol Chief Chris Clem. So, Chris, the three conservative justices dissented in this Supreme Court decision, and I want to pull up a quote from the dissent from Justice Samuel Alito. It reads, quote, whatever one may think about the current administration's enforcement of immigration laws or the way ICE has conducted its operations, the protection of federal officers from potentially lethal attacks should not be thwarted. So the court essentially found that the situation was not chaotic enough. Now, we just told you about the attack on ICE agents in Maryland yesterday. What's your reaction to this ruling?
Well, good morning, Nate. Merry Christmas to you and all the viewers around the world. Look, I got to tell you, I'm disappointed in the Supreme Court ruling, but I agree exactly with Justice Alito. The president should have every tool available to him in his toolbox to protect Americans, American agents, and everybody within our U.S. borders. And the congressman in the clip before was exactly right. Kennedy deployed them in Oxford. Bush deployed them at the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. And governors and the National Guard Bureau have used National Guard soldiers and resources, for everything between border security to civil unrest. This is a prime example of people getting conflating immigrant and law enforcement, as well as conflating the issues of First Amendment rights to protest and assaults. These National Guard soldiers were there to protect property and protect our agents while they're doing their job. I'm hoping, and I agree with you, I think the president will just escalate it to do everything he can, and let's get the challenge back to the courts and let them rule in favor of upholding the law and protecting the president's right to protect Americans.
And to be clear, this decision is preliminary and it only includes Chicago. But of course, the president has sent the National Guard to other cities like Los Angeles and Portland. How do you see this decision affecting those two cities?
I imagine that those states will actually try to challenge it or try to get enjoined with this preliminary, but I don't think it's going to impact anything. The boots on the ground led by Commander Bavino and all the support from federal agencies are going to continue these operations. They're going to continue to do the job that they have sworn to do, and we've seen the results play out. I mean, the numbers do not lie. The success from the interior operations are incredible. Whether it's self-deportation because they know the federal law is coming after them, or the actual arrest and removal of these aliens out of the country. I mean, look, I don't think anything's going to stop them. The president has made it very clear, and we're seeing the results. And I can tell you, most people are very much in favor of seeing the criminal aliens and these illegal aliens, thrown out of this country as quickly as possible.
So the Washington Post editorial board is out with an idea that President Trump has openly considered. If we can pull up this headline from an editorial, the Supreme Court raises the stakes on Trump's troop deployments. The decision risks the president invoking the Insurrection Act to deploy the regular military. Is that something that you think Trump might do?
It's an opinion, right? So everybody has an opinion, but I don't see this being, bringing regular military in there. There may be some isolated incidents because we have seen the escalation of attacks against ICE officers, and what it's over 1,000% increase. We're seeing those threats happening. So there may be an isolated issue, but as far as writ large, I don't see that happening. It may not be necessary because we've got such a momentum behind the Border Patrol and ICE and all the federal agents that are throughout these major cities doing their job and being successful. But I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think it'll be a at-large issue that the president will enact.
Well, speaking of that momentum, 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the country in not even a full year of President Donald Trump being back in office. Chris Clem, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. We really appreciate your time.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.